G'day guys, welcome back to the never-ending saga of us building R31s. So anyway, it's time to chuck some oil in this thing and put the battery back in it. It's charged overnight, so it's all good. Yeah, this one, charged overnight. Anyway, so I'll chuck the battery back in, fill it full of oil, and we'll start it up, and fingers crossed no oil leaks anywhere. Doesn't appear to have leaked any water overnight, so hopefully everything's right with the water and I can dump the coolant out and what am I saying? Dump the water out and refill it with actual coolant. And yeah, that'll be this thing done for this weekend, I suppose. Still got a fair bit to do to it before it's ready for sale. Still got to finish my catch can, still got to give it a nice, good polish, wash, clean up. I've got to put some fresh tyres on my TI wheels and put them on the back so it's rolling on all 4 TI wheels again. And yeah, there's a few other things I want to do as well, so still a bit to do on it after this, but at least if it's started and the oil leak's fixed with the new clutch and everything, that's one thing ticked off the list. Needed to get some fuel all up in it. Alright, oil pressure's good. Might lift her up and check the oil leaks underneath. Alrighty, so it appears we have no leaks in the sump. That sump plug seems to be fine. Everything seems to be just dandy. From what I can see on that filter block, thus far no leaks, but time will tell on that. So yeah, hopefully we are all sorted. Hopefully this thing, all those sump issues I was having, oil leaks I was having, are sorted, and then with my new catch can setup, there will be not oil all over everything on this side of the engine bay and engine, which will be just grouse. Also, after getting a little bit of heat in it, there also doesn't appear to be any water leaks, so pretty happy to drop this water and put some coolant in it. So I'll bring it down, turn it off, let it cool down, do that.
Like a sinking ship.
Rightio, so back down in its hole, mine goes until next weekend, and back onto the hoists. The hoist Rex's white car goes, so we can keep working on it. There's always more 31 things to do. So much work to do. It's like more work than I had to do to build my entire car. Alright, so glad my Skyline's done, or that part of it anyway. That's sort of the most work was that I needed to do, and glad we got all that done today and yesterday. So pretty big day and a bit to get that done, but super stoked that it got done. New clutch feels awesome, so that's going to be great. So like I said, that'll come back up next weekend, and it needs a fair bit more work. Stuff I want to do to it needs a good polish, cut and polish and detail and everything, so before it's sale. So G that up for next weekend, that'll be another big one. The motor that came out of the Silhouette is actually, I sold that to the same bloke who I sold the 31 to last time, who has the EH with the old running gear out of my 31 in it. So yeah, I sold him the 31 the first time. He is actually buying that motor off me, so I'm going to take that down to him at some point as well, so I've just put it out of the way for now. Silo's going to stay there until we're done with Rex's. 31 shit everywhere. So yeah, I'm pretty much ready to head back home to the coast whenever. So I'm just going to keep helping Rex for a little bit today, before I sort of look at heading off and going back to the coast and leaving you with Rex again for a while. Oh, Rex's one outstanding lifter showed up today, so Gobby sorted that out for us, so thankfully that's here now, so he's got his last lifter that he needed. Rightio, big cleanup. That's pretty much going to be it for me. I'm going to start transferring some footage and start getting ready to go, so I will leave you at this point with Rex, because I'm going to head back to the coast. But as you can see, Rex is busy pulling all the trim off. Yeah, quick closed door respray has turned into...
Quick engine freshen up, quick closed door respray, get it out the door has turned into just ground up, complete rebuild.
Oh God, why do we do it to ourselves? But anyway, so all this trim's coming off, getting prepped for paint. So hoping to get some paint on it this week, but just see what happens.
The weather, if it's humid like this, it's no good.
Unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of a booth or anything like that, so it's pretty much just paint when the weather and, you know, time permits. Especially here, when it's dry, it gets real dusty, which is a pain. When it's humid, it's not good weather to paint in. So yeah, sort of just waiting for that perfect weather day where it's nice and still and not too humid, but also not too dry, and try and get some paint on it. Anyway, I'll see you on the next one that I'm on, which I don't know, depends what happens this week. Might be back sooner, depends what happens with work. So catch you later.
What's up, guys? We're back again. It's Monday. Had another late night last night and a late start today. We've had some pretty wild weather. A really heavy storm came through earlier today, so we've been a bit slow to get started. I've actually, because it's so hot, it's so humid, we've sort of come to a bit of a stall on the R31. We need to start just fixing up the rust repairs and sort of getting ready for paint. But you can't really do it in this sort of humidity and this sort of weather. It runs the risk of humidity and water getting caught up in your repairs, and that'll eventually bubble out, and it doesn't work very well. So as annoying as it is, we sort of have to wait for some bit more appropriate weather before I get sort of any further on that. Yesterday I didn't film any of it, but made up just a bracket for the remote mount washer bottle. This car didn't have one anyway, so that's a nice little touch. Still comes in handy even on just a track car if you get, you know, dust on the windscreen and stuff like that. It does come in handy. Also made up the brackets. They're sitting under the bench there. The brackets and got the battery box mounted. It's going to go down in this corner. Pretty happy with how that came out. So battery box is ready to go. Everything's ready to go in the boot. I'm just going to leave that stuff out while we spray it, just to avoid getting overspray on anything like that. We have decided, I've just gurneyed out the boot and cleaned it up. I'm not going to bother respraying that. It's just taking things way too far. It is a track car after all, and it is just a boot. It's not a show car. So this weekend coming's Australia Day. I'm going to be going up to Inskip Point with some friends of mine that are coming down from Mount Isa. I haven't seen them since I went and saw them earlier last year. So I'm going to try and get the Land Cruiser sorted out while we can't do too much more on the 31. So the first thing I have to do, it just needs a couple of little things like a service. It needs a new windscreen, which is booked in for Wednesday. But in the meantime, I need to try and sort out this fuel pressure issue. I've decided to just replace the fuel pump. I do have another 460 there, but I'm thinking about just putting a Bosch 540 in it that I also just have sitting there, just to give us a little bit of extra pump. At the moment, my theory is that this pump is failing because after 2 years in the car as a single pump, I think it's just getting worn out because it's it's quite high up, and it's sort of, if you have a look at how fuel pumps are, they have a curve, basically a fuel curve for litres per hour versus pressure. And because the LS1s do run 60 psi, so 4 bar of fuel pressure, it is quite high. And obviously with this thing making quite a bit of power, the fuel demand's fairly high as well. So what I'm hoping is that the 540, because it's capable of pumping more at the same pressure, should be further down in its curve. I'm hoping we get a little bit more longevity out of it. And pulling this tank out, I've done it several times now, and honestly, it just shuts such a shit job, and I'm really not looking forward to doing it. I've just been procrastinating, but it has to get done. So that's why I'm thinking about put the 540 in it and be done with it, because the longer it takes that I have to pull this stupid tank out again, the better. I do not enjoy it at all. And the only other thing I've got to do as well, I've got some ICE ignition leads to replace the ones in the car. I'm not sure we updated that one on our trip back from the beach the other week, where it developed that misfire. We actually found it wasn't the TPS like we suspected. It was actually just burnt plug leads. just the amount of heat on that trip up there, being under boost for so long, just pretty much has just burnt the boots that go onto the plugs, because they are quite close to the headers. They've done all right considering that they've been in there for 2 years. So we've actually got I've got a set of ice leads. The boots on them are slightly smaller and a little bit better material, so they're going to be a lot better in future. And I'm going to put some heat socks on them as well, so hopefully we don't have this problem in future. Because they're completely custom, I can make them any length I want. I'm going to look at how I might be able to route them even better than the old ones are, just to keep them away from heat where we can. So yeah, that's pretty much my plan. I'm going to do the fuel tank first because I just want to get that done and out of the way. And yeah, so I might put that on a bit of a time lapse for you. You can see just how much of a pain in the arse it is. We'll get into it. So here we have the pump assembly out of the cruiser. That's your float for the fuel gauge, etc, etc. And that's the old 460 pump. This is our new Bosch 540. And the problem we may have though is that the 540 looks to be just a little bit longer, so I may have to modify this down tube. I'll get the other pump off and we'll have a look at it and see what it's like. Okay, we've got our new pump ready to go in. I actually decided against putting the Bosch 540 in it. This is just another Walbro 460 that I had, a brand new one, just because the Bosch one's actually longer, and with the different filter, the pickup system that goes on the bottom of it, I was going to have to modify like that tube. I was going to have to change the plug, the wiring's different. It just started turning into just too much bother. So I just decided we'll put a new 460 in it. It plugs straight in, goes right back where the old one was, and we should be right to go after that. So let's just put it back together in the exact same order it came out, but in reverse. And that's this job done, which I'll be very happy about. Okay, so before I put this unit back in, since I put this tank in, which this isn't out of this car, this is out of a later model one, out of a later model that had the 4.5 1FZ in it, the EFI. The reason I did that was to get the in-tank EFI pumps when I first put the small block in this thing years ago, because the 3F that originally came in this had a mechanical pump up the front, so there's no in-tank pumps and no facilities to put them in. So the one thing that happened though is that ever since then the fuel gauge has been slightly out. Basically it will stay on full for ages until it drops about a quarter of a tank, and then by the time it gets down to a quarter on the gauge, it's actually empty. So it was not a major issue, just as long as I was aware of it. I just used to set the trip meter and just sort of look at it that way. But while I've got this out, I've taken the opportunity to actually swap over the old gauge into this one. So on the unit, this is the actual, that's your float, and that's how your gauge works. The problem I had is that this is the old one here, which is this. This little tang is actually pretty screwed and it was being unreliable, so I ended up having to pull both of them apart and butcher them and basically put the old potentiometer into the new gauge, and now it's working like it's supposed to. So just to explain how these actually work, that's your float there, obviously floats up and down with fuel level, and it moves this tang here across that little black bank is what's called a potentiometer, and it's basically just a variable resistance unit. So what happens is at low fuel like this, there's more resistance because the contact is down the bottom, So there's about, I think 108 ohms on this one at bottom, and when the fuel level's right up and it's at the top, there's only about 8 or 9 ohms of resistance. And that's how your gauge works. Just as your fuel level drops, the resistance increases, and that just basically tells the gauge how much fuel's in the tank. So the difference is, and it seems like it's not much, that's the one that came in this tank, the one that was incorrect, and it's only 10 ohms different, but that 10 ohms makes a massive difference. So now, with the old potentiometer in this sending unit, at the bottom there, it's 118 as opposed to this one, which is 110, or 108, I believe. And at the top, yeah, I think this one was 3 ohms at top level, whereas that one was about 8. So slightly different is just enough to throw off the fuel gauge. So now that I've pulled that apart and put that back in, I've checked it with the multimeter, and it's working as it's supposed to. So our fuel gauge should be a lot more accurate now, which will make me happier. It's just one more small thing that wasn't quite right, but wasn't worth sort of pulling the tank out just to fix it. But while it's apart, I'll take the opportunity, and it'll just make one more thing a bit nicer about this car. So yeah, now I'm gonna put it back in. Righto, tank's back in. Good to give it a test fire. .62 PSI, bang on. That's what we want. So hopefully that's one problem fixed. It should sort out that silly fuel pressure issue that it's been having. And yeah, I might try some ignition leads later on or something. I'm still waiting on the socks. They were express posted today. Hopefully they'll be here tomorrow, I suppose. And yeah, I could still make the leads up tonight, but just leave it with the current leads on it. I did put 2 new boots on just to get it home, and it's not misfiring anymore, but yeah, it definitely needs those new leads and get that sorted out. So I'm really glad that that's done. I do not look forward to doing that job. It's just such a pain in the ass. All right, all good. This is what happened to that crack when I got home from the beach and washed it. It's gone from down there all the way right to the very top of the windscreen. All the way up. So that's always fun. Anyway, it's booked in for renewal on Wednesday, and so should be all good. The only other thing I'm concerned about is these front tyres. Not too bad for tread. For some reason, back tyres are starting to get a little bit sad. So there's uneven wear front to back for some reason, not really sure why. Anyone want to have a guess? Anyway, sweet.